Hello everyone, I thought I'd take a little wander around the base today, and I was hoping you would join me so we can talk a little bit about Fallout 4 and where we've left things with it now. Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Shredding Skeptic, where we will be taking a quick exploration of my base over at Sanctuary, talking a little bit about Fallout 4 and some predictions for 2016. So first up, I want to talk a little bit about where we've left things with Fallout 4. Now, Fallout 4 has been released for quite a while, so I don't want to say there's going to be a lot of spoilers here, because at this point I figured you guys have all played through this game already, but I guess spoiler alert for those of you who have. So as far as the four factions go, I've, assigned my loyalty in the following order, starting with the Minutemen, the Brotherhood of Steel, the Institute, and the Railroad. I suppose I have a number of philosophical reasons for choosing them in this particular order. As we enter 2016 and face many of the existential challenges that are ahead of us, I guess now would be as good a time as any to discuss my own political philosophy and my own thoughts and opinions on the human race and such, and where we may be heading in 2016. I don't imagine we're going to face anything as crazy as a nuclear apocalypse as depicted here in Fallout 4, but Fallout 4 does make for an appropriately analogous backdrop for discussing the very nature of what it means to be human. And even as we rebuild and try to start over, there's always going to be those who maybe see it otherwise.
I'll hand it to you. This place isn't awful. It's still a hole, but it could be worse.
Thanks, Negative Nancy. Anyway, once all of the bullshit has been cast aside and literally rendered into atoms by nuclear warfare, the very foundation of our beliefs over what is important, well, they get a nice big nuclear spotlight cast on them. Let's see what Preston thinks. Hey Preston, what do you think of the railroad?
I hear a lot of talk about the railroad, helping free synths and all that. They don't sound too bad.
Well, I agree that they don't sound too bad, but I think in the end they're probably going to end up doing more harm to the human race than, well, help. Now, the Minutemen, on the other hand, I found that their strategy of really just helping people out with whatever it is that they need seems to be the most effective strategy for, well, getting things done in the best interests of everybody. And it's a decidedly more libertarian stance. Now, on the other hand, the Brotherhood, although they do tend to be of the more extreme in rhetoric, I unfortunately don't disagree with them on enough stuff to really make them my enemy. I mean, their goal is basically to save the human race by hoarding technology and sweet armor suits, and I love technology, so yeah, I don't think I'd really disagree with them on too much stuff. They are unfortunately most rigid in their ideology, and this lack of flexibility in thought leads me to believe that they will not make, well, the most interesting of conversationalists, but again, they may be a safe bet in the end. This brings me to the Institute. While I do agree with some of the things that they're doing there, I think their desire to basically replace the human race with machines is, well, a little bit too much of a step too quickly. So, again, I don't think I'm going to be relying on them very much. Oh, but they do have that sweet waterfall in their base, so there's that, I guess. Now, I've been really meaning to add some foundational support to this apartment block, but these stairwells seem to be holding up just fine. And I was also thinking about putting some guardrails around this stairwell, as you basically have to fall into it to go up and down stairs, but, well, details. And finally, I guess I come to my thoughts on the railroad. While it seems like their hearts are in the right places, I really wish they would dedicate more of that time to helping the human race, rather than spending that time, I guess, implanting agents within the human race that are non-human. Now, the interesting thing about synths is that a lot of them don't even know that they're synths. That's how well the Institute has been able to replicate this technology, so the people that the Railroad are helping to escape actually think they're human. So that does provide a bit more of a moral quandary than simply eliminating machines, I suppose. So I guess say what you will about Fallout 4, but a lot of the times I just find myself sitting out on the corner of my sanctuary and just kind of thinking about all the moral choices that are actually before us in this game, and I don't really see a lot of these mentioned all the time in, games media. And I suppose as I find myself staring out over this vast, ashy wasteland, many of these questions get brought home as I wonder how things are going to play out in 2016. I don't wish to be accused of being hyperbolic or even fear-mongering, but I fear that many great changes will be happening in the next couple of years. Global political patience seems to be wearing thin, and there's a feeling that things are kind of coming to a boiling point. With all of the political discord going on in Europe, as well as the sharp divide growing within America and Canada, I can't help but feel that as this rhetoric heightens, cooler heads may fail to prevail. Which is why I think it's time that I become a little bit more open with my own opinions. Not so much in a self-flagellating sense of telling everybody what it is I think, but perhaps demonstrate that a difference of opinions is okay and that we can all get along as long as we can just talk it out. 2015 demonstrated many cases of the tyranny of the shrill minority, silencing those who think differently than they do. Nowhere has this been more prevalent than in the gaming community, which over the past 18 months or so has taken a huge amount of flack from not only the mainstream media, but also games media itself. I am of the belief that if we can address some of these misperceptions with a message of positivity and truth, our gaming community will not only grow, but thrive. Now, I realize a lot of these topics are very controversial, and I may actually be painting a bit of a target on my back for even bringing them up at all, as a lot of other YouTubers who have talked about these things have noticed their channels getting DMCA flags and all sorts of other nasty things happening to them for people who really don't want to hear the disagreement. Now, fortunately, in the past year, when this has happened to some of the other channels, it's had a huge spotlight put on it, and it now seems to be a much less popular tactic, given that false DMCA flags do carry with them criminal penalties. That said, given that I live in Canada, this process isn't without risk, with disagreement now largely being characterized as harassment. Now, I don't want to overstate this or make it seem like it's a bigger problem than it really is, but unfortunately in today's day and age, the discussion of certain topics does come with a certain set of consequences if there are people out there who seriously disagree with you and have enough time on their hands to contact your employer and accuse you of being a Nazi and all these other kinds of things, which unfortunately has happened to a few really good YouTubers I know who are definitely not Nazis, but it's definitely an easy go-to if you have little else to lob at someone else's argument. Now, I found a good solution to this problem is simply be nice to people, and they'll tend not to try to screw you over. That said, niceness does have its limits, as we'll see as we enter our tavern here.
Nice night. Means things with sharper eyes than us will be on the hunt.
If you work, you eat. It's as simple as that.
Okay, got it.
Sure, let me just stop what I'm doing to talk to you. I'm being sarcastic. Leave me alone.
Whoa, alright, whatever you say. Man, what an asshole. Man, I'm not sure who keeps letting assholes into my settlement, but I think I'm gonna need to put up a sign or something. But I suppose she's entitled to her opinion, and as the general of the Minutemen, it's my duty to defend to the death her right to say it. And I suppose that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the crux of our issue, freedom of speech. Now, it's not that speech doesn't have its consequences, but there is a stark difference between you saying something and people thinking you're an asshole, and you saying something and you getting silenced for trying to disagree. So as we enter 2016 and you find yourself as a gamer perhaps feeling a little bit marginalized by the people around you saying that gamers are all this and gamers are all that, perhaps you can find some refuge here, where even if we disagree, you will still have an opportunity to be heard so that we can at least have a chance to learn something from one another. So let's let this year be the year that the cultural libertarians of our generation have a chance to take a stand and say no to the censorship of art, games, and media for the sake of the gentrification of our language. And for those of you who believe and have, I guess, been sold the bill of goods that changing language will somehow change the world, unfortunately, it's just not the case. The way you're going to change the world is by first changing yourself and then producing value for others. And over time, these collaborations will grow to be larger than the sum of their parts, where 1 and 1 can equal 3. So know that if you want to take this journey with us in 2016, we will be pursuing truth, freedom, and opportunity for all that are willing. The time is now to come out of the shadows, for we must take the fight to the enemy. All of those who oppose truth for the sake of feelings, those who oppose freedom for the sake of poor outcomes, and those who choose to oppose opportunity for the sake of identity politics. they will be brought to penance before the altar of the free market of ideas, and their ideologies called into question before the grand inquisition of other people's opinion. Good ideas will rise to the top, while ideas that are poor will wither or be ignored into obsolescence. I do apologize for the fiery rhetoric, but I do feel that the world is full of so much pain right now that could be easily addressed if we just learn to communicate. If we can learn to relinquish the hold that feel-think has upon our minds, and learn to just share our ideas and take feedback. The transformative quality it could have upon all of our lives can take us to an entirely new level. So I humbly implore you once again to join me on this quest for truth by subscribing to the channel, and may 2016 bring us all to higher heights, while keeping us firmly planted in reality. Because remember, these are our games, and this is our story.